Hello and welcome to your Draw Final Draft Eye and Alignment video. So we're going to go over the labeling first, and then I'm going to actually hook this camera to my desk. Okay, so because this one's vertical, well actually, whether it's vertical or horizontal, you're going to put an X in each corner because those corner boxes are not going to be used at all. So I labeled mine A through H at the top and 1 through 10 along the side. And if yours is horizontal, then you'll label it the opposite direction. All right, then I dug out the viewfinder, and so you'll notice that there's a little piece of plastic taped to your viewfinder to divide the box into fourths. That's going to be particularly important. I started with the contour outline, and so I started up here and kind of followed down and then around. I kind of gave myself like a general kind of guideline for the shadow along her chin. I haven't done the guideline of her cheekbones yet because I want to get the eyes on there. Then I drew the hand, her watch, little piece of her clothing. So you want to kind of avoid the face at first because you're going to get better as you go. For her hair, I drew the contour outline, and then, just so you can kind of see it, hold on. I gave myself guidelines of where the highlights were in her hair, kind of the jaggediness, and then anywhere where there were strands, like here, where you can kind of see the strands of hair. Her hair is pretty nondescript. So for some of you might have to look in the mirror. You might have to bring up your old picture, or sorry, the picture that you took and kind of zoom in. And then in here, like I kind of just turned it into a shape. That way I had something to draw to go off of. So I turned that part into a shape. I gave myself guidelines. I kind of chunked out the hair where the highlights were, to give myself a general direction. Because her hair is fairly dark, I'm not going to be adding a lot of white charcoal. So you want to be a little bit careful about how much hair you draw. And if you can't see any detail at all and your hair's short, then we'll probably just fake a few marks to make it look like hair. Okay, so now let me hook this on for an up-close view. So once you have your basic contour outlines, then you're ready to start drawing facial features. And I already drew one of the eyes because that eye was very difficult, which I think is why she did not pick this image, because that eye was hard to draw. Hold on, let me move this. Apologize, usually I'm all set up, but I wanted you to show the bigger view first. Sorry, this. Oh. Give me just a second. This arm. So annoying. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, so I drew this eye first. I didn't do the eyelashes at all, and I made sure that I outlined where the eyelashes connect, which is right there. I also gave myself a double line where the eyelid is. Even though it's very slight, I still want to be able to put that in there. Okay, in your sets of paper, there's like a skinny piece of newsprint. Like it's like a strip of it. It's kind of thin. This is to go underneath your hand or arm. Then there's a bigger piece of the same paper that will tape on top so that when you put it back into the folder, like you're not leaving it out, then you have something to cover it with. And you'll keep that piece of paper. So I'll show you guys that at the very end when I take it off. Okay, so I want to cover up what I have done already. I kind of started the nose, but I feel like it needs to definitely be adjusted. All right, so with my viewfinder, I kind of look at what box is the eye mostly in, and it goes from 4C, I'm going to do the corner of it, to D, E, 3, and 4. Okay, so 4C, DE 3 and 4. Then I'm going to put a dot for each corner of the eye so we can get like the basic angle of the eye. Since her head is like kind of tilted, like she's looking down at the viewer. Okay, so 4C. I have that on there. Okay, so for 4C, I'm going to super lightly divide. So I kind of like just do like little dotted line a little bit where I can barely see that. And I'm going to do the same. And I'm definitely going to go above because I'm going to end up doing the eyebrow too. And you can always measure if you want to. So I divided the boxes into 4 because your viewfinder divides the boxes into 4. Okay, so then I'm going to make a judgment about where the corner of her eye lines up. So it's below half of halfway. This is in 4C. So I'm probably going to go like about here. Okay, a little mark. Then the very corner of her eye, actually, 3, 4, ooh, just a little bit. D and E, 3 and 4, okay. Like a little bit there. Then, super gently, I'm going to draw the general angle of her eye. And then that's how I started with this one. I drew like the general angle of the eye over there first. I'm going to do the same for the nose because if the eyes are tilted, the nose is tilted, the lips are tilted, and everything should be parallel to each other. Actually, let me show you guys that. Sorry, give me just a second. Let me show you what we usually go over in Art 1-2. Okay, so just to kind of point this out, I apologize. Should have had this ready to go. I thought about it and then did not get it ready to go. I got busy drawing. Okay. So if you remember in Art 1-2, we looked at how things line up. And if you missed out, here you go. So we look at how the eyes are slightly tilted, the nose is slightly tilted, the mouth is slightly tilted. So it's parallel, parallel, parallel. We also look at how the interior angle pretty much lines up with the nostril, and then the corners of the mouth somewhere near the center of the eyes, inside, outside, pupils, something of the sort. If your face is at an angle, so let me find, okay, so for her, she does still have, I put like a little dot here, a little dot there, get the slant, little dot here, little dot there, but then I also look at a general slant because then the nostrils generally slant and the mouth generally slants. So I would look at like how much space, if I just draw a vertical line, is between the edge of the nostril and the eye, and then I look at where does the nostril line up according to the eye over here. It's like the very edge of the white part of her eyeball. You guys don't have this paper. So it's pretty important to make sure you look at the parallel angles of the face. So hers is a little more obvious. Angle, angle. I'm not really including the tip of the nose, but there it is. And then the angle of the mouth. So that's what I start with to make sure like the mouth isn't slightly tilted or the nose isn't slightly tilted. So those guidelines are super important, which is why I didn't draw her nose all the way. Okay, so now I'm going to look at where does the nostril line up so I can get this general angle of the nose. That's in 5C, 5C. Okay. Okay, it lines up. The curve is right above halfway, right on the line pretty much. And then I'm going to flip up my grid and look at, and you might have to draw with pencil, like where's the actual edge of her nostril, because it's so subtle that the actual edge is right there. So that way I can see it when I put the grid back on, which is kind of hard for you guys to see. Okay, so that tells me that her nostril touches the very edge, but the shadow comes a little further over, like the cast shadow from her nostril slightly. So then that gives me, it should also give you the top angle of the nostril too. So it gives me that general angle. A little bit. So then I make sure it's like somewhat similar, eye to eye, nose, and now the mouth should tilt as well. So I'm gonna look at just the general tilt of her mouth, but I am gonna put a dot in each corner. And if you're looking away from the camera, really pay attention to how this lip kind of curves out and this lip overlaps. If you need to super gently kind of, like her lips are almost her skin tone. So I'm going to outline that so I can see it better with pencil. So look at how this part curves because I'm looking at her lips at an angle and how this part like kind of comes over and tucks up into the side. So that's probably the most important thing of drawing lips at an angle if you're not looking totally straight at the viewer. But we're going to start with the general angle. Okay, so with my viewfinder, I'm in 6C. I'm gonna say it's a little bit past half of halfway and a little bit above half of halfway. Let's say like here. That's where that corner of her mouth is. Okay, the other corner. It's pretty much straight up in the center of this box. And this is 6D. So it should be somewhat parallel. And hers kind of curves because of the formation of the lips. Okay, so then past that I would, give myself a guideline. Okay, so the curve of the lip is more like here. I look at the top curve. So I'm also looking at spacing between the nose. How her upper lip, let's see. The curve is pretty much on the halfway line here. And the other curve comes down. And then I probably give myself a guideline of how it passes through the grid, how it comes down and passes through the grid. So you can use that to then draw, and then you'll end up erasing the guideline. So make sure it's very light pressure. Okay, so let's go over drawing eyes, because if you get your eyes right, it generally looks like you. And I feel like there's a lot of detail to go around in the eyes, so we'll just focus on that part. And then I'll draw the nose as well, looking at how it lines up with the eye. I wanted you guys to be able to see both. Okay, maybe I'll just go like that. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so I look at how, where does the opening come? Like right there, which is, and you can mark on your viewfinder. Obviously you have your halfways, but you can do half of halfway. That way you can tell if it's in between half of halfway. Okay, so I'd say below half of halfway. So if this is half of halfway, a little bit below. And that is in the center, okay. So I have a little curve there. So I'm trying to hold my pencil in the middle, but I also want you guys to be able to see this. So. Okay, and then it slopes all the way up to like almost that corner. So I'm just gonna give myself a little guideline for the slope. I look at where's the height of her curve of her eye. So it kind of depends on how you're looking. So like right here is where it curves the most. She's looking away. Yours might be in the center, although if she were looking to the left, the curve would probably be a little more on the outside of the right. So usually the curve is the opposite location of where you're looking, or if you're looking straight ahead, it might be somewhat in the center. That's not true for everyone because it does depend on the formation of your eyes, but that's what I look for in starting. Okay, so I do look at how that line pretty much lines up with the grid line, but it curves, let's see, about half of halfway. Give myself a little bit of a mark. Okay. gently give myself the outline of the eye, knowing that I'll have to go back and erase it where like her iris and the eyelashes all meet because it's all dark right in there. Disregard the eyelashes for right now. And for her, she really does not have an eyelid because she's looking down, like an eyelid crease, but she does have like a curvature that kind of fades into the eyebrow, like right here. So I'm gonna value map while I'm there a little bit. Okay, so for the eyeball itself, I look at how much space can I see, because I can see a little bit of our waterline underneath. So where's the curve of the eyeball itself? A bit past half of halfway. So half of halfway, a little bit past. Okay. Okay, so then I'm ready for the actual outline. And I look at how her tear duct points down. Like it's kind of angled and it points down. Yours might be rounded and it might point in, or it might be rounded and point down, and then you might have that little piece that kind of comes up a little bit right there. So take a look at what direction your tear duct points. Okay, don't want to press very hard because a lot of her eye is dark. Okay, so inside there, actually we'll just leave that. I'm gonna go a little bit lighter right there because that's gonna be her waterline. Okay, so looking at where the iris, so let me scoop this. How the iris, the color part of the eye lines up a little bit past halfway. I'm gonna give myself a mark. And then flip up my grid. Can I see? No, it's just totally dark. The rest of the eye, but if I wanted to fake it, I'd probably like, you know, if you kind of draw like a circle, I might do a slight value right in there. Okay, so for pupils, if you can't see them, that's why I would draw that slight circle. You're gonna add them in there. So you might have to look in the mirror and like pose again. And the rule of thumb is usually that little speck of light in the eye is right along the edge of the pupil. It's right underneath her lash line. So I'll put that in. Okay. Okay, so looking at her lower lid, looking with my viewfinder, how far down does that crease underneath her eye? It ends at half of halfway and pretty much curves up underneath, and I'm going to do a slight outline because we're going to go around it and then we'll smooth it out. Okay, so still in this box, I'm kind of looking at how this darker scoop, like she has a little bit. So super gently put that in there. If she had an upper eyelid line, like an actual, I can kind of see a little tiny bit of a line. How high does that come up? Like half of halfway, not even. Yeah, okay, like maybe like here. She has like a ever so slight crease that's really hard to see, but I am going to put it in there. So I'm going to outline it so I know to go around it. Okay, so then for her eyebrow, then I want to look at, you know, how much space is between, where does it start? So I give myself a guideline. It starts in 3C. Pretty much like almost here is where it starts kind of fading into the darkness, into the shadow. Okay, it comes up to about halfway, comes up almost to the corner. The underside is below halfway. Okay, moving to the next box. Look at how I can see a little corner of her skin right there. And it ends halfway over here. So remember, don't totally outline it, even though she does have a clean outline on hers. So we'll go back and perfect it later. Okay, so there's the general shape. We can always make it smaller. Notice how I did not draw her eyelashes at all. So we're not drawing eyelashes at all. Okay, so then for noses, remember everything's gonna look big. Like her hands look big, her eyes look pretty big, and then you start putting the nose and stuff on there. But remember that your nose has like, well, hers has like a bottom, a top, and a side. But I'm really just drawing like parts that I can actually use as an outline. So I'm gonna get rid of that guideline. And for the nose, I'm gonna get the angle of the nostril in there. So the nostrils will look big until you add everything on there. They always do. It kind of curves up, and they either look like a bean, like her nostril. There's like a really dark edge, like a really dark shape in there, and then there's like some darker midtones in there. So the opening isn't necessarily the shape of it. Like it kind of scoops over. A piece like comes up into it. Okay, so then I am going to give myself a little bit of like the shadow that's cast from the rest of the nose. And it's generally just like a little bit darker underneath there. Okay, the shadow that comes from the nostril. That curve touches the line. And slopes back down. So what I would also do, that curve still doesn't look quite right. Well, look at my spacing. I mean, it looks right on there. Hopefully with a value, it's gonna look smaller. Anyway, so I am going to gently kind of outline this shadow just so I have it with the grid. I'm looking at how it like connects up into the eyebrow. And obviously that's going to be subtle. We'll like leave it a shape. It's going to look really, really funny. And then we'll go back and blend it in and fix it. Okay, so I have the shadow on this side of her nose. Okay, lips. So you have the guideline. You want to kind of generally stay with your guideline because you want it to be parallel, 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 parallel with your other features. So I usually start with the line between looking at how her, ooh, I got lucky. Her lip passes through like the center part of that grid. Okay, and that is in C6, C6, okay. So the line kind of dips down here, right in the center, and it slopes up. And then down. And kind of turns into the curve of the bottom lip. Okay, but since that line is darker, we know we're going to have to avoid it. So I'm going to get rid of my guideline. Lighten it. I'm going to go back and do like the double kind of line. Okay, now I'm going to look for the center of the lips, and hers come down to like a peak. And I have the guideline of where that part passes through the grid, and hers just kind of slopes down pretty fast, and then it angles out. I'm going to check the angle of the top of the lips, actually. Okay, I do think that one needs to come up. But I look at how close the lips come to the grid line. They don't actually touch for me, so it's pretty close though. Okay, looking at, bring out that curve a little. And I have a line where it passed through the grid here, and then it quickly kind of slopes up. If you have major light areas, I would put those in with the viewfinder. So she has like highlights, and I'm just doing like little kind of scribbly line. She has some definite highlights over here where it's curved. I'm going to outline just a little bit where I can see some bigger wrinkles because they're darker. Just the starts of them. And if you can't see lip wrinkles, look in the mirror because you're gonna need them to make yourself look real. Okay, so from there, I'm pretty much almost done drawing her, but I do wanna like value map this part so I can give myself a stopping point. But of course it's gonna be super gently applied in 5E. Okay, so for many of you, like her skin is subtle, super subtle, which I do not prefer. I would have rather picked a harsh shadowed person, but none of you like the harsh shadows and hardly any of you did them. So like here is slightly darker. I just have to make notice of that. Or I could outline that. Over here I could do like a smaller one and then like a bigger one, but just know that you know, you're going to have to really pay attention. If you have subtle values like she does, good luck to us. The subtle values are difficult. We wanted full range of value. Okay, so the only thing I need to do is she has like a necklace on I need to go back and draw. But then you would take a picture and you would insert it into the document. But if you have, and then when you erase your grid lines, like I would still kind of tap, like, cause these are still fairly light in value. So I would definitely still kind of, especially here, like that's like the nostril, it's dark in there. So I kind of tap on your features to take away some of the charcoal. And of course, once you get your feedback and I'm like, yep, looks good, erase your grid, start. With kneaded eraser, you're gonna have to like go back and really erase your grid. And so it does leave a little bit on the paper, so we do have to be, you know, kind of careful and, you know, make it pointy when you're getting in tiny little areas to clean it up. So remember, don't draw eyelashes. And let me go back. So let me get the line of where her lashes start. So I'm going to pinch this, make it sharp. You can kind of erase the grid line out of there. Pinch it, make it sharp, erase that part. So really kind of clean it up. But of course, you can send me a picture with all of your guidelines on there. I'd rather see your guidelines so I can be like, oh, you know, bring it over a little bit, whatever. And then you'll erase after you get feedback from this document. So I'm double checking, like, do you have value mapping? Do you have, you know, is that enough detail for the hair to do the hair? Are the lips crooked? So we want to make sure we catch that before you get too much further along. Bring that over a little bit, adjust that. Okay, hopefully it turned out, or it will turn out pretty good for you. Good luck. Let me know if you need help or have questions.